not that we need it in here, but the recording would be good. Christy back there, she's the tech person today. She says, don't look back at me. Welcome everybody to, this is kind of loud. I'm Pastor Paul Hoschild, and I'm really excited to offer this Footsteps of Paul trip to Greece. I've done it before, and as I've gone to Israel before too, and I know how much the Bible has come alive for me in actually being in the places. Well, not only do I like learning new cultures and new countries and all the sites, but when I can also enhance my faith a little bit too with some of those Bible stories, especially in the book of Acts, to me that makes everything just doubly pleasing with regards to the trip. And so we'll go around, if you don't mind introducing yourselves with the microphone, we'd really appreciate it. So again, I'm Pastor Paul. I've been here at Chatfield Lutheran for 3 years. Before that, I was in Trinity Lutheran Church in Hayfield for 13 years, and I have some Trinity folks here tonight. Before that, I was at Bethel Lutheran, that's where I connected with the Andersons. And then before that, I was at a country church, Evangel Lutheran Church, where I connected with Carly and Edgar. And so great to have all of you here.
And I'm Paul Larson, and I am just pleased to be here tonight. Working with Paul is fabulous, but I should forewarn him, I learned all about him traveling with his sister in Egypt in 2007 while he was traveling through Greece. So, but this is a journey, and I will tell you more later about the journey that you're about to take. It's one of those rewarding trips that just reinforces all of who you are. So, this is my wife. We wanted a Sunday afternoon drive. We drove down and all over southeastern Minnesota and then stopped here when the sun went down. So.
I'm Eldon Anderson, retired about 3 years ago, and we live in Rochester now.
I'm Christy, the wife.
Oh, pass the buck, huh? Ron and Shirley Carlson. We live here in Chatfield now. We moved here about 2 years ago. And this is kind of well, last year we were in Iceland, so this is kind of a warmer trip for us.
We're Rick and Angie Schneider. We came down from Prior Lake this evening and been in touch with Pastor Paul here about, from the Israel trip a couple years ago that didn't work out, and keeping an eye on this one. So we're glad to be here and find out about it.
I'm Denise Wheelock. This is my husband, Jay, and we live outside of Fountain. We belong to the Rip Prairie Church.
And we are Gene and Yvonne Philippi, and Pastor Paul is our son-in-law. So
we're at Hayfield. Denise Philippi from Trinity Lutheran in Hayfield. My brother-in-law hired me as the director of Christian education there and then left after about a year. So Pastor, yes. Yes, Pastor Paul is my brother-in-law.
I'm Caroline Edgar. Pastor Paul was a minister at Evangel Lutheran Church when I lived out there. I now live in Ankeny, Iowa.
Yep. Linda Baseman. I'm from Albert Lee. I'm Carlene's sister-in-law, and she called me and asked me if I wanted to go on this trip with her, and I said yes.
I'm Kelly Etbauer. I belong to the Trinity Hayfield Lutheran Church. Pastor Paul's been was my pastor for many years, till he left. And I heard about the trip through Facebook and was on board. So, I'm sorry, and I'm signed up with my mom and my boyfriend. So, looking forward to it.
Galen Grod, retired elevator man. I used to take care of the elevator in this church, and a good friend of Dean Hillsman.
I'm Dean Hillsman. I live in Chatfield and attend church here.
I'm Jerry Zimmerman, and I attend church here too.
I'm Connie Costello, and this is my husband Daryl, and we go to church here.
All right. Some of you were signed up for our Israel trip that actually wasn't that long ago. I was looking back at it like, oh, it was a year ago, but it was only back this past April we could have gone, but we had to cancel. I think we had to cancel back in November, end of November, when we knew that it would be another year or 2 or 3 before we attempted to do that again. So thank you, everybody. And I'll switch to your... Well, there's a similar ship that will be on there.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the trip a little bit. I'll tell you a few things that you might expect when we get to the end. Any questions you have, happy to field them. If a question comes up as I'm going through this trip or going through the slides, feel free to ask then. Now, I'm not in sync with what they're doing back there, and so it won't be quite as smooth. I have all my notes. I have the same PowerPoint right down here on my screen, but we're not connected with up there, so we will be just fine. It says something that all of you came from many different places, and some of you came for real long drives. So I think that says something about a guy named Paul.
Apostle Paul, you mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, even though it says Chatfield Lutheran Church, it also says, and friends. And that's part of what this journey is about. It's about the friendships you'll make along the way within the people you're traveling. It'll also be about the friendships with the people that you meet along the way. Some of them may even become lifelong friends. Go ahead. It is. It is. It'll be a journey of faith. A journey which, if you're like me, when my wife and I went through Greece, we came back and we went, wow, all of that we've read, we can see it now. We understand it even more. But it's more than just that. It's about fellowship. The fellowship you have with your group and the people that you meet along the way. It's about fun. It's about coming together. You learn from history. You learn from the culture that you examine, and part of this will be about the culture that you see and understanding the culture in the times of Paul and the culture that exists now. It'll be about the art. And as I said before, who wouldn't want to follow Paul? Housechild or the Apostle Paul? I'll follow them both.
Thank you.
We're going to depart on May 11th. We're actually going to depart on a coach drive. There'll be one stop pickup in Rochester, one stop pickup in Chatfield on the way to Chicago. The reason we're doing that is because we're going to fly Turkish Air and save several $100s. And the ride from the coach to Chatfield to Minneapolis Airport versus Chatfield to the Chicago airport is only a couple of extra hours. I think that's worth the savings that you'll have. But not only that, as you ride that bus, you'll begin to already be talking to one another, making friends. And my guess is Pastor Paul might even have some kind of small lesson or some kind of prayer. But it's also time to begin to think about, where am I going? Whose steps am I going to follow? The excitement begins to build as you drive to Chicago.
And I think it takes the stress off knowing that we're not going to miss the connection from Minneapolis to Chicago, because If we miss a connection, that throws everything off. So to be in Chicago already, we don't have to worry about any of that. Plus, we don't have to figure out how we're going to drive up to the airport and who's going to drive us up and pick us up, because we can all park here in Chatfield or have a meeting place in Rochester for some as well.
Go ahead. Oh, you're ahead of me. Okay. So, we're going to fly Turkish Air, as I said. We'll stay overnight at a hotel near the Chicago airport. And we have an 11 o'clock flight, 11:25 flight out of O'Hare, which means you want to be at the airport about 2.5 to 3 hours before 11:30. That gives you plenty of time to get some rest, get some breakfast, and we'll be just a short 5 minutes from the airport to get there.
And I've flown Turkish Air before a couple of times, and think it's really a good airline. I've always been really impressed by it. Although some of you maybe have not. We'll have a little layover in Istanbul, but very safe, very good airline, good service, good food.
And Paul's right. It's a wonderful airline, good service, good food. The layover is 3 hours, which is perfect. Not too long, but not one that you have to sweat, not making the connection. We'll make that connection, and the good news about this is we're going to land in Athens a little bit earlier than what you might have expected. Most of the flights, if you were coming from the U.S. On Delta or somebody else, you're going to get there at noon, 11 a.m., 1 p.m. kind of thing. We're going to get in there about 9 o'clock. What that'll give us time to do is go to the new Acropolis Museum. It's only a couple years old. What you'll find there is you'll find ancient artifacts. Some of them date back to Paul's time, some even before. You'll find interactive displays, and it'll be just the beginning of understanding where Paul walked, the times that he walked. A couple months ago, one of my Jewish guide friends and an Israeli scholar stopped in my office unexpectedly. We had a very interesting conversation. He says, "You need to evangelize more." And I'm like, "Wait a minute, you're Jewish. What are you talking about here, Ronnie?" It was an interesting conversation. But he was saying, you need to tell about what Paul did. You need to tell about what Paul did, is what he was saying. And he began to explain to me, and I'm like, where have you been studying, Ronnie? This is not what I expected from you. But Paul was not very popular in Greece. He came into a culture that had lots of money, that had their own way of doing things, that had their own way of thinking. And he wasn't the most popular person that walked through Greece. And yet you're going to discover what happens as he walks through Greece. Oh, by the way, at the end of that day, there'll be plenty of time to go to the hotel, to relax a little bit, to freshen up, because then before dinner, and this is really where my wife is the expert, you're going to get to experience Greece cuisine for the first time down in the Plaka, a lively restaurant area. What's it called? Moussaka, squawali, seafood like you wouldn't believe, pitas, and even salad, yes, salad, and calamari. And if you asked me, calamari is nothing but something rubbery you chew on until I went to Greece. Then it melted in my mouth, and it was absolutely amazing. My wife is whispering in my ear, tell him about the octopus. The seafood is amazing. So then we'll get a good night's sleep, and we'll wake up, and we'll begin to explore the footsteps of Paul. The next day, we're going to take a day excursion to Corinth. Corinth is a short drive. You're going to cross the Corinth Canal. Don't have a picture up there, but it is this amazing amazing engineering feat that connects two seas. And in Paul's time, they had to sail around that peninsula to get to the other side. But now there's a canal. You'll get to stop and see that canal. And then what's going to happen is you're going to go on to Corinth and begin to learn about Paul's time in Corinth. And Paul was there, 3 years? 3 years of time that he spent in Corinth. You'll begin to understand the culture of the Corinthians. And when I get to the next slide, I'll explain. The culture of the Corinthians was a little different than the culture in Athens. And those are some of the things that we're going to discover as well. Okay, that insight helps you understand Paul's approach. Paul had a way of adjusting what he said to speak the language of the people that he was running into and meeting. He spoke to the Athenians different than he spoke to those in Corinth. You learn about some of the resistance that he got in Corinth, which wasn't very much. I don't remember the exact passage, but he runs into Galileo and he's put on trial. One of the things that I would urge you to do, bring your Bible with along on this journey. Take the time to read it. Now, if you're like me, your study Bible's heavy, weighs about 8 pounds, and it's like, I can't pack this, so load it on your phone. Make sure you put it on your phone, though. Don't rely on the internet, because that'll cost you a little bit unless you've got some international plan, and even then, if you're using a data plan, it can add up. Last time I went to Israel, I loaded it on my phone, and I discovered, wait a minute, what did I do when I got to Israel? I loaded the King James Version, and I went, oh, this is Greek to me. But most of the places, I was still able to connect and switch versions around. The next day, after a full day in Corinth, we'll come back. We'll have dinner again that night. And what you'll have on this, you'll have 2 meals a day. You'll have 3 meals a day when you're on the cruise through all of this. As I said, Paul spoke differently to the people in Athens than he spoke to the people in Corinth. They were a different culture. They understood differently. And you're going to go to some of these amazing places. You're going to have a tour of the Acropolis. You're going to get to walk up to the Parthenon and walk around it. Now, there's walking on this tour, and you want to be aware of that. There's not a lot of walking. It's not like if some of you have gone to Rome where you walk all over the city of Rome or other places. But there is some walking. I've mentioned the Parthenon. That's not level ground that you're walking on. You want to have comfortable walking shoes as you're coming along. There is an elevator or an escalator up to the top there. I think there's both. But just off to the side, and this might be one of the places you want to open up your Bible, is this small little place called Mars Hill, where Paul talks about the unknown God. Read that before you go. You'll need much more when you get there. And you'll see the inscription that talks about the unknown God. So now you've had 2 nights in Athens. Now it's time to catch the cruise because they only leave on Fridays and Tuesdays. We're going out on a cruise. We're going on celestial cruises. I should tell you that we have inside cabins and outside cabins. We have an allotment of both. Those that would like the outside cabin, there is a slight surcharge for the outside cabins. And it's pretty much first come, first serve as to what's available for those cabins when you sign up. It's $130 for some of those outside cabins, $180 for some of the others to upgrade to them if you'd like to do that. For the 3 days, right? For the 3 per person, yes, per person. And then that first day after you leave Athens, you come to Mykonos. Mykonos is one of these beautiful Greek islands that people go to for fun. Your excursion on Mykonos isn't included there. There's 5 excursions on this cruise. We've included 3 of them. Mykonos, you can get off the boat, you can come up, walk on the villages, see the shops, have something wonderful to eat. Can you flip to the next slide? Explore. You've seen these probably, the whitewashed buildings, come into the shops, seeing the windmills. And you can do that easily on your own. Those that would like to can take an excursion off from as well, a guided one. As I said, we've included 3 of the 5 excursions that you'll encounter. And the ones we've included are Patmos, which I'll explain in a little bit, Ephesus, and Santorini. And then Crete and Mykonos, you have an option for that. They're an optional cost. So one night on the cruise, you've slept one night on the cruise, and now you're going to come to Kusadasi, Turkey. You're going to come to Ephesus. A lot of those pictures that you were rolling through earlier were Ephesus, where you saw Paul when he had a little bit more hair and a little less weight, right? And I should talk. The first thing that struck me the first time I was in Ephesus was this place is massive. This place is massive. And guess what? It's only about 10 to 15% uncovered from its original time as you walk through Ephesus. It was a little bigger than Rochester. It might have been a little bigger than Minneapolis and St. Paul, too, and Prior Lake. But it's massive. Now, this day, we'll take that excursion. There'll be some walking on that day. The good thing about it is you'll get back to the cruise and you'll have time to set and relax again. You're going to walk and see the ancient library. You'll see the amphitheater. You'll see what some people say was the house of Mary, or where Mary went and spent her last days. There's arguments about as to where that place is. There's 2 different, historians will say there's 2 different places, but it's something to think about. You're also going to discover something else, if you're like me. I grew up, and in my education, John was sent off to Patmos, which we were going to go to next. I thought that's where his life ended. It did not. You're going to learn a little bit about John's life when he comes back to Ephesus as well. What you'll discover about John is he never stopped teaching. He never stopped sharing the gospel. So after Ephesus, we take off and we come to Patmos. Patmos is where John was exiled to. One of the things I learned through travel is I always envisioned exiled was you were all alone. No. Paul was there on an island. There were people there. And just because he got sent there, Paul was still telling people about Jesus while he was there. John, excuse me. Thank you. Thank you. It's Sunday night and I'm tired. It's John. So John's exiled here, right? And he's telling the people about Jesus. He's also writing the book of Revelation. And one of the things you're going to get to do on an excursion is go into the cave and see where John was, where John wrote this book. Now I will forewarn you, and I think everybody that I see here can handle this. There's a couple of tough steps into that cave. But if you've got a hand to put on somebody's shoulder, or somebody's got a hand for those first couple of steps, after that it's manageable. And I don't think there's anybody here that will have a problem. You just might need somebody to put a hand on, because there's a couple of awkward steps into the cave. You will also have the tour guide there telling you, be careful, be careful, be careful. It's not as bad as I'm thinking, but it's a couple of awkward steps. And it's a little bit of a hike up to the cave. You should do a little bit of walking before this tour, but it's not like other tours that you might have been on where there's a lot of walking. Next day, you continue on and you come to Crete. This is one of the excursions that's not there. Some people I know, by the time they've gotten here, they just want to stay on the ship. Others, they want to go and explore on their own, and some want the excursion, and we'll leave that one up to you. Just imagine, though, you're on this ship, and I should explain, the ship isn't the Caribbean cruises that you're on, the ocean-going liners, and it's not the riverboat. It's not the canoe that you might see out here going down the river either. But it's a nice-sized ship that might fit on the Mississippi River that gets you from island to island. It has a couple of different restaurants on it. It has some amenities on it. Basically, you're on that ship to be able to get from one island to another, but you can enjoy it too. The last stop is Santorini. That excursion is included. You'll explore some of the beaches. You'll explore some of the history of Santorini. You'll see why everybody in the world wants to go to that island. It seems like you see all the Hollywood stars on that island. It's simply beautiful. It is simply beautiful. The cruise is over. You've had time to relax. You've had time to rest on that cruise a little bit. You've seen the story of John and Patmos. You've seen both John and Paul in Ephesus. Now it's time to get back in the shoes of Paul again. As we stop, we get off at the port, and we drive about 2.5 hours north. It's a scenic drive. We're headed to Delphi. We'll see the sanctuary of Apollo. We'll see some of the ruins, the Oracle of Delphi. Learn a little bit more about the Greek culture of the time. We're going to overnight in Kalambaka that night, just below Meteora. And I think it's the next slide I want to show you. It's one of the most beautiful places there is. There's one of the monasteries. I think there are 6 of them left. 6 monasteries left. There were 24 of them. Planes in World War II did a number on some of them, and there's 6 of them left. We're going to get to visit 2 of the monasteries. We're going to learn about these monasteries. These monasteries were built up in the high places because the monks wanted to get closer to God. They wanted to learn more. And you'll learn a little bit about the monks' life. You'll learn how they lived up there.
Probably won't be going to
You won't be going to that one.
That'd be a climb up there. Right?
That one would be a climb, yes. But I also think on the back side of that one is a cable car.
Ah, okay.
So. But they really are they're absolutely amazing and spectacular. You see the artwork in them. And wherever you go, look at the artwork. One thing I would tell you is when my wife and I, it still hangs on our wall, is an icon picture of Paul. Make sure when you buy those things in Greece, they don't say made in China on the other side. Get the authentic ones. Get the authentic ones. After we visit Meteora, we're going to stop in a place called Varia. In English language, it might be Berea. That's the place, the middle one. And I will tell you that it is a small garden in the metropolis, but it brings back that passage in Acts where it says the Bereans being more noble, or the more noble Jews, went to the scriptures to see if what Paul was saying was true, and confirmed that it was true. We'll stop there. We'll continue on, arriving in Thessaloniki. When we get to Thessaloniki, we're going to begin to explore. We're going to begin to explore Thessaloniki. We'll see some of the places where Jason was, one of Paul's helpers. We'll learn a little bit about Paul's time in Thessaloniki. But the next day, we're going to get up and we're going to go first drive to Philippi. Philippi will come to some of the old ruins. You see the Colosseum, across the street from the Colosseum, actually in that upper corner, just a little bit off the upper corner picture there. We're going to come to the jail where there's an earthquake, and recall the story of Paul. The jailer's about to run a sword through himself. Paul says, "Here I am." And in that process, the jailer comes to know Jesus. We're also, on that day, going to spend some time learning about Lydia, learning about the businesswoman. One of the things about Ephesus, one of the things about Philippi, they're all on the crossroads. They're all on the crossroads of the trade routes that run from China all the way to Rome. And there's these strategic places that they're at. We'll learn how Lydia helped Paul out and supported Paul as well. And Lydia, as it said, was the first woman that was ever baptized in the European continent. And then we return to Thessaloniki to continue to explore Thessaloniki. Come to the upper town, look at the White Tower, we'll come in to the Church of St. Paul, and at some point, Paul's friends say, "It's not safe for you here, you go on to Athens, we'll stay here." And so now we return home from Thessaloniki, hopefully enlightened, hopefully having made new friends, hopefully having had a good time. You might have enjoyed a wonderful glass of wine somewhere along the way. You might have had I know you will have had some wonderful seafood if you like seafood. If you don't like the seafood, the salads are absolutely amazing, and so are the vegetables that you find in Greece and some of the other things. What your tour includes, it says estimated round-trip airfare. It's no longer estimated. What we estimated is what it is. It's all locked in. You don't have to worry about that changing unless the airlines are capable of doing something that they're not supposed to be capable of doing anymore. It includes land transportation, including round-trip motor coach from Rochester to Chicago to catch that flight. It includes 2 meals a day, 3 while you're on the cruise.
It also includes when we come back, we'll land in Chicago again and be bussed back here. And it'll be evening. It'll be later in the evening, the way it turns out. If we had flown into Minneapolis, it'd be the same thing, although we'd have to drive an hour and a half back to Rochester and Chatfield. And so even though we might not get home until like 11:30-ish p.m., it's really late, but that's still the best bet, and we don't have to worry about missing any connections again.
Paul was looking out for you when we looked at that airfare, trust me. And it was ridiculous trying to get out of Minneapolis. It includes your cruise, like I said, inside cabins, and there are upgrades available to the outside cabins that we're holding. Includes all the admissions to everything that's listed in your itinerary, except for those 2 shore excursions that are listed as optional, Mykonos and Crete.
And I must say too, Paul, if I can interject, when I was there, I was in a single one. Christy, my wife, wasn't with me. And even though I had a small, I want to say basement cabin with no windows, I didn't spend a whole lot of time there. I wanted to be up visiting and sitting in lounges and getting the viewpoints. And so it's not a terrible thing if you don't upgrade, because it's just 4 days, I should say, and you're up and about. But it's totally up to you.
Most of them are in the middle.
My understanding is the $130 one was more in the front or the back of the ship. The $180 one was more in the middle as far as
The
me looking
upgrades
it
to
up.
the outside, yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it includes a tour manager that will be traveling with you. It includes some step-on guides, and where those step-on guides really come in are the guides that lead the shore excursions. And you will have your own private shore excursions. We've got a large enough group to be able to do that on the cruise. It includes luggage handling. At the hotels, they'll take your luggage up to the room if you'd like. Includes all your taxes and tips for the city guides, the hotels, meal service, and the hotel tax.
And does it cover
We
the
have
tips
increased.
on the ship too? It should, right?
It does, yeah.
Okay. And then any kind of drink package, or basically we just pay for our own drinks?
There is a drink package on the ship, Paul. There are two of them, and I don't want to misspeak, but you do have one. I have to double check.
Probably the lower one, yep,
Yeah.
okay.
Want to click the slide, Paul? What it does not include is the meals not on the itinerary. Basically, that's those lunches when you're not on the cruise, aren't included. Usually there's water at some of those meals. It includes your drinks on the ships. Sometimes there'll be water for those dinners, but if you want something like a glass of wine or something like that with dinner, that's on your own. That's why it says beverages except with dinner. What it doesn't include is the end of tour gratuities for your tour manager and your coach driver at the end of the tour.
It does include coffee too, otherwise I wouldn't have even offered this trip. So coffee is like water, right? Should come with your meal, or is that, I'm not even sure, that might be extra?
You click the next slide,
Okay,
Paul?
sorry.
The other thing it doesn't include is items of a personal nature. Make sure your passport doesn't expire. Make sure it's 6 months. Make sure that the date it expires is at least 6 months out from the day you return. The good news is passports are a little quicker if you do have to renew these days. There's also optional insurance, traveler's insurance, that will cover baggage. It will cover some medical costs if you get sick abroad, if travel delay, etc. And what I should tell you about that is we have set up so that you can go online and sign up. And we'll allow you to do it both ways, but I will tell you that we have two different coverages. The coverages are basically the same, but if you sign up online this way, the travel insurance it's a different company. It's called TripMate. Coverage is almost identical to the one we can offer you if you sign up the other way, Travel Guard with us. The difference is the price. It's 4.5% if you sign up online of your total trip cost. If you fill out an application, which some people prefer to do, it's a Travel Guard policy. The coverage is almost the same, but that one costs 7.2%. And so it amounts to maybe $100 more.
So you're saying the difference between clicking on the...
Between the insurance package that's offered here with the company called TripMate is 4.5%. But you have to sign up online to get that policy. The other policy we have in the office is Travel Guard, and that's 7.2%. So the way to get there is click on the QR code, and that will take you right to this tour. And if you have trouble, call our office, talk to Heather, talk to Sonia. Either one can walk you right through it.
Sure. Those people who were going to Israel that had, I think they were on the Travel Guard. So
Right.
if their insurance was put into a voucher, they would just be staying with Travel Guard, correct?
Yep, that's correct.
Maybe a little bit more, though, because the cost of the trip is more? Is that correct?
We'll figure that piece out, Paul.
Okay.
But it'll
I
be
also
close.
understand that if you pay by check or put your check numbers in on the online piece, that'll save you some money overall, too.
Correct. You can pay by check online, and that will save you a little bit as well. Basically, you put in your account number in, and it's an automatic deduction. It is, in just a minute. I have copies of what it does cover.
The question for those who are watching on the recording is whether Medicare, did you say, would be effective overseas or if it's just based on this insurance? No, Medicare is not. Medicare is not. Absolutely. Nor are right. Supplements. You have to have some other kind of insurance. So I'm just wondering if the one that's offered here.
So on the travel guard policy that we have, it covers $20,000 of medical expenses if something happens abroad. On the TripMate policy, it actually covers, this is tiny, just a second. It covers $25,000. So there's actually $5,000 more medical coverage on the TripMate policy. Did you have somebody to help you walk you through that with the claim by any chance? One of the first things you always want to do if you incur something is call the insurance company right away and let them follow through with that. I don't know exactly what happened in your case. We haven't had that experience. The only negatives we have once in a while is there's a misconnection in the communication, and then we got to get involved to connect the dots. So. We've had Travel Guard for decades, and they've always been good. They've always come through. When 9/11 happened, they were unbelievable when other companies weren't. And the only reason we have the TripMate card, TripMate policy, and they're good too. They come recommended to us. But Travel Guard doesn't have an online sign-up that will coexist with signing up online. They'll get there someday, but they're not there yet. So I talked about TripMate, which is the next slide. Again, the next slide is a little bit more about the TripMate coverages. It is trip cancellation, trip interruption, missed connections, travel delay, accidental sickness, and medical. And I do actually, if you want to see the exact coverages, have copies up here for you. Baggage gets lost. TripMate does have something else. There are people these days that ask for cancel for any reason insurance. It's available, costs 7.8%, but here's what I caution you about cancel for any reason insurance, and all policies are different. It doesn't cover 100% of your cost if you cancel. They vary from 50 to 75% of your costs when somebody offers you cancel for any reason insurance. I haven't seen one that's 100% cancel for any reason coverage. So your next steps, you've already got the brochure. Check your passport. Make sure that doesn't expire within 6 months of the return date. And you can register online. You can use that QR code that's there. If you have trouble with anything at all, you can call our office, and Sonia or Heather can walk you through it. And they'll walk you through the process. And there's one more thing. Paul asked me to be prepared for tonight. Because originally when we designed this, we had an extension to Rome. And it sounds like there's some people that might want to extend to Rome. If there are enough people, and I think that's where Paul was coming from, we can make that extension to Rome happen. We could make it happen with a few people too. I don't want to quote a cost on just a few people or anything, but I will share what it might look like. Because Paul's stops didn't stop in Ephesus. They didn't stop in Greece. They didn't even stop in Rome the first time. But he ends in Rome, of course. And originally our thought was, let's do an extra 3 nights in Rome. What I'd like to know from all of you, or let Paul know, is if you're interested in extending to Rome. That adds some cost. Originally, when we calculated it, it was about $1,350 per person. Can't guarantee you that, but I would try to keep it as close to that as I can. Rome is a little bit busy next year. It's the year of Jubilee, and people are flooding to Rome. The airfare may have changed a little bit since we priced this out, but Turkish Air, I think, will be safe, getting a similar rate to come back that would go from Rome to Istanbul and back here. And so there would be some details to work out if there's people that really want to do that.
How many are thinking about extending an optional Rome? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so
I think we need to talk about Rome.
A dozen. Yep.
So, okay. So some of you will be able to come home from Thessaloniki that day, and we will work out some of those details. But for those that want to extend, you're going to fly from Thessaloniki then to Rome. And people in the office are going to love me on Monday. That's good. They're going to love you. They won't love me. And we're going to fly to Rome. We're going to fly to Rome, and one of the first things that we'll do, and we'll try to get the early flights out of Thessaloniki that gets you there with time to see Rome. One of the first things you're going to do is to see, Lord willing, St. Paul outside the wall, where the Apostle Paul was martyred, where he's buried. There's some catacombs there as well. We'll have to work rather quickly to get you into those catacombs, so please sign up because we need names to be able to do that. One of the things you discover when you go to Rome is in various places there's catacombs. One of the Rochester pastor, Lynn and I were with them, and his last night where he wanted to end the whole tour of Italy was, I want to stop at the catacombs and then I want to have dinner to discuss everything we've seen. The reason he wanted to go to the catacombs is because we hear about Paul and we hear about Peter. But guess what? There was a whole underground church there. The church was persecuted. They worshiped underground. They served Paul. They served Peter. They told people about Jesus, but they had to do it underground. And it gives you a sense of the early Christians as to what their life was like. We might have to reverse these days, but we'll spend one day walking through Palatine, walking through the Capitoline Hills area. Now, you're going to be walking this day. There'll be time to rest. It's not marching, but there will be some walking, quite a bit of walking. You'll see the Colosseum. You'll come across the Forum. You'll see Mamertine Prison. Mamertine Prison, it's arguable whether that's the place, the actual prison, but it'll give you an idea. Stop to think when you get there. Paul's writing these books. He's writing these letters from this place, and I'm not going to try. You're going to have to go. You're going to have to go But I ask myself all the time, what enabled Paul to write such letters from this place where he was captive? The first time he was there, he was under house arrest. That was actually pretty nice. But the second time, not so nice. We'll come to the Vatican. The Vatican will be busy. I will warn you right up. There's no skip the line options, even if it says skip the line next year. The Vatican will be busy. There will be lines, but it is well worth getting in to see the Vatican. How many people have been in the Sistine Chapel? A few of you? My wife once had to talk a gal who wasn't walking very well into going in. She didn't want to hold the rest of the group back. And my wife said, "We'll get you a wheelchair. Paul and I have been here before. We'll push you through." And guess what? When you get to push through, it's not handicap accessible. So we got to go through some libraries that you don't get to see very often. But we got to the Sistine Chapel. She looked up at the Sistine Chapel and that work of Michelangelo, telling the story of Christianity. When she walked out of the Sistine Chapel, she looked up at my wife with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Thank you. This said more to me than 50 years of Bible study." That's the impact that that piece of art had on her. You'll have a little bit of free time that afternoon as well at Navona Square, Spanish Steps. You could spend a lifetime in Rome. And I've gained this much weight from the gelato, but Rome is amazing. Just be prepared. It'll be a little bit crowded next year. And then we'll fly home from Rome instead of Thessaloniki. You'll fly from Rome to Istanbul and then back to Chicago. So with that much interest, I guess we are doing the Rome extension. We're from Minnesota, so Bert Blyleven and curveballs are a good thing. And we'll make that happen. I'm actually happy to make that happen. But you can do me a favor. If you can get yourself signed up, and note when you sign up you want to do that Rome extension, I'll get the cost back to you as quickly as I can. It might take me a week to 10 days, just because getting answers out of Rome these days take a week to 10 days to get the answers from the hotels. They're swamped over there at the moment. So, but it'll be an exciting time to be there too. It'll be an exciting time to be there.
And May will definitely be better than June, July, and August.
Yeah, you don't want to be in Rome in July or August for sure, or June. So, any questions I can answer? Yes.
I saw when you were listing the cost, there was a single supplement for both that and for the Rome trip. What is the single supplement?
The single supplement that you see for Greece is if you're in your own, staying one person in a room, there's a supplement for that. That's what the single supplement is. There'd also be one for Rome as well. So, yes.
So when you're signing up on the website, are you able to sign up two people, or just each person that's going?
You list your roommate, and then the roommate signs up as well. And you can sign your roommate up too, as long as you have her information or his information too. So. Yep. But you have to have their information to be able to put in. So.
So each of us should sign up separately, but list each other as.
Correct. Yep. Correct.
And then in Rome, I'm assuming, there's a hotel or whatever that everybody's staying at.
There will be, yes. There will be.
And one last question. On the cruise, you had noted that there's some additional things that you could, like a drink package if you wanted a drink package, or.
There is a drink package included. There are two of them, and I just don't want to misspeak right now. The girls in my office deal with all those details way more than I do. I'm the big thinker guy, the big picture, and the guy that has to watch the money. And so I'm not as familiar with the two different packages, but I'll get you those answers. I've got a list of everybody that's here, so I'll be able to answer that question tomorrow or Tuesday. So, yes. Correct. One carry-on and one check bag. I think they're 50 pounds, but I'd have to double check. Yep.
Yeah.
There isn't a deadline, but the sooner you can do it, it will help all of us. 150 days out is when we have to notify the cruise company as to what we're holding. In theory, you could sign up closer in than that, but I can't guarantee you we'll have a cabin after 150 days out. So 150 days out from May is roughly 5 months, so the end of the year.
To spread the to spread the payments out, I recommend within the next month, before mid-November. October. I would do it by the end of October, just so that we get a sense of, people can still sign up after that, but just to get a sense of our numbers would greatly help in reserving.
And that helps everybody else too, because often what happens with some of our groups is a lot of people wait till the last minute. People that sign up early are asking us, are there enough people to go? Are there enough people to go? Do I look clairvoyant? I'm sensing there is, but it makes people nervous, and everybody's comfortable when they know that there are enough people committed to make it happen. What happens sometimes is we're 2 or 3 short, and we'll work hard to make that work, but if we only have 5 people or 10 people and it's based on 20, that makes a big difference. And we've had it before where as soon as we'd said there's never going to be enough people to go, a week later, everybody's calling, and that's a headache and a disappointment because you've already told the 10 people this isn't going to work. And some of them at the one time had already signed up for another trip. So,
But I think, we have lots of seriously interested people. So
I don't doubt it with this crowd.
Yeah.
And there's travelers in here. And as I said, who wouldn't want to walk in the footsteps of Paul, house child or the saint? I'm guessing somewhere between 20 and 30. So what happens is the coach will pull up, and the crew will you'll put a tag inside the lobby in the hotel. You'll get your keys, go to your room. They'll deliver your luggage up to your room for you. When we first came out of COVID, there weren't enough workers, and you couldn't guarantee it. There weren't people to always handle that luggage, but things are starting to get back to normal. So,
and that's where the service and the tips are already included.
Correct. Yep.
For the luggage services, yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
When we went to Iceland, we were told there was kind of some said do it, some said don't.
So typically that's the way these tour managers make their money, and typically the drivers, it's €3 to €4 a day for when they've been driving. For the tour leader, it's anywhere from €5 to €7 a day. But it's also about the service that they provide. And if they haven't provided a great service, you have that discretion. The really good guides, they'll not say boo about a tip or anything else. And it's amazing how well they do. Some of the young and experienced guides, it's like, you need to learn. They almost tell you, I'm expecting this, and it's like, no, that's not the way you lead. That's not the way you serve. So. So in Greece, there'll be plenty of ATMs when you get there. One of the things we will do when you sign up, and we're in the process of updating this, but you will receive this, what to know before you go. It will give you guidance on some of those things. Before you depart, we'll have a pre-departure meeting. We'll answer some of those same questions. And if you have them tonight, I'm happy to answer them. But typically what I tell people is you want a little bit of foreign currency, but not a lot. And I'll tell you why, because it costs you a lot more on this side of the ocean than it does on the other side of the exchange rate is generally better. One of the things you want to do, though, is check your banks, check your credit cards before you go, because some are better than others. Some will, as a generality, the big banks are a little bit better to go. When you have some of the smaller community banks, they're going through another bank, so there's extra layers in there, and there's extra charges that get incurred, and the exchange rate's not as good. It's not because these community banks that are wonderful and serve you, but in this case, they're not always the best way to draw that cash out. Airport exchanges, they're always high. The one other thing, you want to be careful at some of these ATMs that you go overseas, that make sure they're a bank ATM. They start to now have some little Western Union kind of ATMs. Western Union is a great place to get money in an emergency. It's not the cheapest place to go to get money or to wire money to. But if you use your bank card and an ATM over there, that's generally speaking the best way to go about it.
And our tour guides will probably point that out to us when we stop at the hotels, which is the best ATM that won't charge so much for you to get money out of.
There is. You can do it in the airport. There are places in Athens, for example, where you'd be able to go to a money exchange stand along the way. Guarantee you there are in Rome. Please negotiate your rate when you talk to those guys. That's just the Italian way to go about it. But there are places you can go there. You can also use credit cards when you travel. I will tell you that overseas they don't like Amex as much. The cruise company won't have a trouble taking them, but I love my Amex card, but overseas, and I don't love taking them. It costs me to take them a whole lot more than it costs me to take a Visa and a MasterCard, and they are very cognizant of that over there, especially the small families and things like that. And so, but they will take your credit cards, and again, you can use them as well. So. You're spending more than half a day in Ephesus. You're spending 3 hours probably in Patmos. The others will be 3 to 4 hours as well. So. Yeah, you want to make sure you get back on that ship. You want to make sure you get back on that ship. That's the one place on this trip you always want to be timely. You don't want to hold up the rest of the group. But the ship will wait for you if you're on one of their excursions. If you're not on one of their excursions, they're not waiting. So.
Unless you want to live on a beach in Santorini. Yeah.
So what I would tell you about where you're going is everybody that I'm looking at here tonight is probably just fine with what they have on. Some people like to dress up for dinner. You always want to be conservative a little bit as to where you go. When you go into Ephesus, you're in Turkey. You're in a Muslim country. Respect them. Ladies, make sure you've got your shoulders and maybe even your elbows covered. I think that's the only place you're going to run into the Muslim culture there. It's a whole lot different than when Denise was in Egypt. But just be respectful and be conservative. And I would tell you to come in layers. The weather over there, excuse me.
Yeah, I looked it up just before the meeting, and typically lows average in the low 60s, and the highs are in the low to mid 70s in Thessaloniki and down to Athens and the islands. So
Yeah.
like today, maybe. Some days are like today.
You might want a light jacket in some of the evenings, and you just might want something light in case it rains. I doubt you'll run into rain, but the weather these days, nobody can forecast it exactly. So, yeah. That's right. When you're in Turkey too, women, you want to make sure your knees are covered as well. Other questions? What I would recommend? All the books that Paul wrote in the Bible.
My hope is that not only will we gather for a time of getting ready and learning, but that I will create a little booklet that will have scripture readings for each place that we're stopping, just to be a little bit prepared. And there's a couple of videos that I could show if we're together to get ourselves prepared for that. Wouldn't be a required thing, but I think it would be a great experience to be together for those who are close enough to do that.
And one of the things you will get is a tour diary before you depart that we'll put together, and we'll work with Paul to put that together, and we'll have some of that information in there as well. If you're like me, you got some scribbled notes there so you don't forget. If you're like my wife, every page is filled up with all the details.
The book of Acts, right after the four Gospels, is the main scriptural book that we'll be looking at.
I'm liking this guy. Oh, the luggage? I think the question was, you're allowed one check bag on the airlines and one carry-on. And the luggage is 50 pounds weight limit. Again, we'll have all that information for you well ahead of time, too. In fact, you'll get what to know before you go the minute you sign up. So, and you'll get it again before you depart. So. That would be safe to do, like a good idea. I'm not 100% certain you'll need it on this one. You might enter a place like that in Ephesus, but I don't recall the times I've been there that we walked into something like that. So
it's all outdoors.
It's all outdoors for the most part. Yep. Okay,
I'll take a list of people, too, before you leave, of those who are know you would go to Rome and those who are seriously thinking about it, so that we can get that going, too.
Well, I'm going to give Pastor Paul the last word here, and I have business cards that I'll hand out, too. You're welcome to call my office. You're welcome to email me. I will tell you, you get a lot faster answer from the girls in my office than if you email me. My email gets overwhelmed some days. Yes, that will be part of the pre-departure meeting. That will also be listed in what to know before you go.
Adapters and so forth.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. So when you sign up online, you can do an ACH, I believe, or which is essentially putting your bank account in there and it becomes automatic withdrawn from your account, or you can pay by credit card as well when you sign up online.
Well, I did this one that's listed here, and they wouldn't allow me to pay by check. So I ended up calling the office, and I just sent a check to the office.
That will work too. That's another way around it.
You save $150 a person,
Yep.
I was told.
Yep, and you can do that too. So sometimes the system gets confusing. So what happened there is Sonia said, just send me the check, sign up, I will fill in the information when I get the check. So.
And one reason I got these guys, such a great travel agency, is that they're local. You can call and they'll answer questions very quickly, or they'll get back to you. And
Was there another way to sign up besides just this one? Or was this the only one?
You can also send us an application just the old-fashioned way if you want. Like I said, the only difference there is going to be that it's a different insurance policy that's going to cost you a little bit more.
if you go online to Edventures and go to our trip, there's probably a paper application that you can print out, fill it out, and send in. Yeah, going online makes the communication all the more better because then we're all together and we all can receive that information. And those who do the paper sending in, I think they're working at getting those people onto the online thing just so that we can all be in communication together. Yeah, I think those who are, the first couple people who signed up sent in the page they had printed off, and then I think Heather or someone was going to put it into the system.
Yep. For those that aren't comfortable or aren't technologically savvy like I'm not, you can do it this way. Send it into our office. Sonia will get you entered into the system that way. One of the things about the system, it allows Pastor Paul to go in as well, and he can see everybody who's signed up. He can send emails to you all, but he's already efficient enough that I'm sure he's got everybody logged somewhere else as well. But it allows you to communicate with one another as well. And
I'm signed up to this one. No, this one here.
Mm-hmm.
But now if I want to sign up for Rome, then I would
do me a favor. I get what you're asking me. Let me get your name afterwards, and I will make a note. I will let the girls know. I'll have them call you just to reconfirm that you want to go to Rome. That's her question. Her question is, I've already signed up for Greece. Now I want to go to Rome. How do I do that? And so what I will do is send out an extension to everybody who's here tonight, a little form that says, check, I want to go to Greece as well. Okay? Rome as well. I can tell I'm tired.
You warned me before you got here, so we're good.
You said there were a couple other extra excursions that aren't included.
Correct.
Do you sign up for those online as well? Are they listed? Or?
You can,
on the ship, I believe you do.
You can sign up for them on the ship, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. No.
So if there's any other questions, you can hang around and talk to me or Paul here. And the Rome thing we'll follow up on to see who we have for that and get the prices probably pretty close to where we're at.
Yep.
What was the last day getting back if you do the Rome thing? When will we be getting back?
During a holiday, it'll be during Memorial Day. The way it turns out, it might even be on Monday, Memorial Day itself. If I did my math okay, and that's just another good reason to. And we would just have to figure out how we'd be picked up. We'd have another a bus ride probably from Chicago, unless we.
It would be Sunday the 25th that you would be coming home.
Sunday?
Yep.
Okay.
So Sunday the 25th.
Yeah. Yeah, so not prime, but.
So I kind of read that they're frowned on, like women wearing jeans.
Not in Greece.
Not in Greece, no. Not in Greece, not in Rome.
And outside at Ephesus, I mean, I saw people wearing all kinds of things.
I just read someplace where they found on jeans.
Oh.
You'd be fine with jeans in most of these places that you're going.
Yeah.
If you were going to Israel or if you were going to Egypt or Jordan or something, we'd be talking a little bit more strict. But
So when I planned this meeting, it was still supposed to be daylight, and then all of a sudden fall caught up very quickly. So thank you for coming out as late as this is, and it seems like it's late going home, but I'm excited, and I hope you guys are too. And let me know again tonight or by email. I think you all have my email, or Edventures directly to answer any more questions. If I don't know it right away, I'll find out.
if you haven't figured out, traveling with Paul will be a lot of fun. Thank you again for coming out. And if you want my card, I've got some up here as well. So.
All right, just for my sake, I was going to